Hello and welcome back to the Strong Girl Gossip podcast. We are here with episode 3. Episode 3 already.
Episode 3. So this episode is going to be basically all about where to start with your strength training journey and helping you build all the confidence and consistency you need to make it a good one.
Yeah, they're literally the two main points. Like confidence especially. We understand how daunting it can be to get yourself into the gym and start using equipment that you're not familiar with, performing exercises that you don't really know how to perform properly. It can be so overwhelming. So building up that confidence in what you are doing is absolutely key. And then hand in hand with that, for the results that we know that you want to get, consistency. They're both hand in hand, they're both super important. So yeah, lots coming your way to this episode.
So we're going to be going over where to start if you're not already consistent, how to maximize your progress in the gym when you do become more consistent, and then sort of just like how to build up that routine maybe if you're just not sure what to focus on, or if you're having all these voices from Instagram, you should do this, and actually just stripping it back to the bare bones and being like, okay, we're just going to focus on X, Y, and Z, and that is going to be a great start for you.
The basics are everything. If you can get the basics where they need to be, then you are winning. And I know there'll be so many girls listening to this now who just go into the gym, or maybe just go to the gym when they feel like it. Although I always say this is great and movement is great. And if you are someone that's getting yourself to the gym, then pat yourself on the back, because there's many people that aren't. Do you know what I mean? But if you are looking to make progress and you really want to optimize your time in the gym, or maybe you're training at home, wherever you are training, then we need to chat. Basically, we need a plan of action. And the first thing that we're going to talk through is how do we kind of build up that structure to make sure that time is not wasted and we are optimizing that. So the first thing I would say is ask yourself, how many days a week can I commit to? How many days a week can I be consistent with? And what that means is on week 1, you're not doing 2 sessions. And on week 2, you're not doing 5 sessions. Then week 3, you're doing 7 sessions. Do we get what we're trying to say? We want to be able to say week 1, 2, and 3, I'm doing 3 sessions a week, kind of, or on average. We really want to build up that repetition of consistency, of the frequency of the days that you are training. And that would be the first thing that I would be getting locked in.
That's honestly the first question I ask clients as well. Yeah. And so many times I say, okay, so how many times do you want to be in the gym this week? And they'll go, well, ideally, not this week, just generally, a week. Ideally, I'll be in the gym 5 times a week, but I think I've only really got time for 3, but I really want to do 5. And I'm like, look, let's do 3.
Yes.
We'll start with 3. There's nothing, stopping us adding extra session at any point. Yeah. But I do think when you overshoot it and you're like, I might not be able to get 5 a week, but I do just want to give this my best go.
Yeah.
Let's train 5 days a week. And then you're disheartened that you're not getting those 5. And actually, as a coach, what I see the most is being kind of put off by the fact that you've got 5 sessions to get in that week.
It's overwhelming.
And then actually you end up getting in less than you would have if you'd have just said, I'm going to do my 3 and I'm going to do them well.
Absolutely. Especially if you are starting out, set the bar low and move the bar higher. You don't need to be jumping in straight away going, you know what, I'm motivated, I'm starting this new plan, or I'm starting the gym, I'm going to go 5 times a week. I'll literally be blunt and honest, you won't stick with it. You will not stick with it if you throw yourself in the deep end too quickly. So just like Ella said there, start with 3 sessions, get consistent with that. If you've managed 3 sessions for, let's say, a month on the trot, then if you want to go to 4, build it up, and then to 5 maybe, depending on, your goals. Or maybe 3 is always going to be enough. You are better off doing 3 high intensity sessions where you can put everything into them and show up with 100%. Then show up, half-heartedly for 4 to 5 times a week. More is not always better.
No.
Just because you're doing more sessions or somebody else around you is doing more sessions than you in the gym does not mean their results and progress is better. Facts.
No, literally. And actually, more is not always better, because you're not going to be recovering well if you are in the gym 5 days a week. And actually, that doesn't suit your lifestyle. I think what we kind of miss out is when we're looking at stuff on Instagram, things like that, is actually, does this person who, you know, is paid to work out and has their days free to work out, does their plan align with myself, who has maybe 2 kids and a job?
Yeah.
And like extracurricular stuff outside of that as well. It's like you have to make it work with your lifestyle. And I think that is the main thing, because if you're overshooting how much that you're going to be able to get in that week or that month, then you're not going to recover well.
No.
And you're going to be knackered and you're not going to be able to go into those sessions.
No, you've got to be super realistic, haven't you? You've got to be realistic for what is right for you. So how many days per week to start with? How much time do I have available would come next inside of those sessions? Like, I see this so much. Oh, I did my hour session at the gym. Someone starts Apple Watch or Garmin in my case, whatever it is. I've done my hour, I can go home. Time does not mean anything. Just because you have trained for 60 minutes, it doesn't mean that you've got everything out of that session that you could have done. And equally, if you're training for 30 minutes, doesn't mean that you can't progress. It's all about optimizing that time you've got available. So if you, for example, only have 3 training days a week that you can commit to at 30 to 45 minutes per session, fine. Like, work with what you've got, because you're better off doing that rather than, having an hour session to do, but having to always cram it into a shorter period of time
and not get enough out of it.
Yeah, it all comes back to optimizing the time that you've got available. And that is how you honestly get started, get consistent, and get the best results, not just when you just start, but even now. Like for me, sometimes circumstances change and I have to be realistic and go, I need to drop a session here. Because I'd rather show up, with everything for those 4 or 5 sessions than half-heartedly for the 5 to 6, for example. So yeah, I think days per week, frequency, and time you've got available is key. That's the starting point, and you need to be honest with yourself. Be realistic. Who cares? Do you know what I mean? You've got to be realistic. The more honest you can be with yourself, the further that you're going to get.
Yeah. And actually on that, something that I want to touch upon in this topic as well is like a split. So I feel like you must get asked as well, Jess. Like, I get asked quite a lot, like, oh, what split should I be doing? Or what split's the best? And realistically, if you are listening to this podcast about where to get started on your strength training journey, you do not need a split. Most of us, on average, are going to be training maybe 3 times a week if we are staying consistent. And 3 times a week is great. But with that, you don't need to be splitting up your sessions into upper body, lower body, or whether it might be chest and back, whatever it is. You're going to get more out of your sessions and your recovery if you're doing full body, because then that will mean that you're not too tired. And I think that's something that people always think that when they start, again, it's like jumping to that end point. They see people on Instagram doing these 5-day splits and they're like, oh, well, I've only got 3 days, but I still want to do some of that. That must be how you get results. And it's like, it's not. That's just because they are doing 5 days of training and they are more advanced.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't overcomplicate the split side of things. Like you say, to optimize those training sessions, full body is a really good place to start. If you want to split it further, then my recommendations personally would be maybe a push, a pull, and a lower, because then, it's not completely split into body parts. It really isn't essential when you're first starting. Even like me at this point, I don't personally, it's not my goals to kind of split down into body parts. But yeah, either full body splits or push, pull, lower for like a 3-day split. If you're doing a 2-day split, again, full body is your best bet. If you want to do upper and lower, sure, trial it. I think with splits as well, it's person dependent and what do you enjoy?
For sure.
You know what I mean? Some people love going and, just working on one body part and then, letting that recover and then doing the other body kind of part. Some people would prefer to just, go in and do a mixture, and they enjoy that more because they can't actually stand the thought of working the lower body, for example, for an hour straight. They prefer that mixture to keep them, motivated and engaged. So I'd say with split, hopefully this is just give you a bit of an insight. There is essentially no right or wrong, in my opinion. I think you've just got to go for what is right for you, what works for me best at this time. And of course, as you start to get more advanced and you do want to add extra days, then splits would become more necessary. And if maybe you are someone who does different sports as well. So say, for example, for me, just to take my split, for example, and I know Ella does as well, I do Olympic lifting as well, so Olympic weightlifting. So my split wouldn't just be, for example, upper and lower. I need to really like factor in my strength training around my Olympic lifting days as well. And if maybe you are a runner and you run twice a week, you need to really factorize that and, you know, add that in and make it work around that or any other sport that you do. So it really is person dependent. There's no right or wrong. But hopefully this has just give you a bit of, you know, a point in the right direction, if you like.
Yeah. And I think just coming away from that whole first point is just like, be realistic and don't overcomplicate it. Oh, my leaf. For everyone who's on Spotify, I just like hit my tree that I'm sat next to. But yeah, be realistic, and you're not, you know, you don't need to overcomplicate things from the get-go. Just have a think about how many days you can get in the gym, tick them off for a bit, and see if you can repeat for maybe 4 weeks, and then maybe think about increasing.
Yeah. But yeah, training splits, like, as long as you are repeating, it doesn't matter too much. And this is like a whole thing we'll come on to now. Like, repetition is key, not just when you first start, but always. You're repeating the same like movements again and again to optimize your training. Now, there's a fine line between exercise and training, and I bang on about this so much, especially inside of my programs. Exercise, just to give you a bit of background, would be something that, you know, satisfies an immediate need. Like maybe that's, oh, I got a sweat on, I felt the burn, I've burnt some calories, you know, I worked out today, that kind of vibe. Training is structured. You know, you are working towards an end goal. You really, you know, you've got something in mind that you really want to hit. It's structured, it's purposeful. And training is what gets you results. There's a fine line between exercise and training. And I just want more people to know that the results that you want to get, you need to be training. It's not exercising. You can't just work out willy-nilly. And that comes back to repetition. People find like repetition can be boring and like maybe like lazy. I've definitely had maybe some clients in the past who have come in and was like, isn't it like, why do we keep repeating things? Like, why have not changed this week? And it's like, this is how you get the most progress. This is how you build the most strength. It's just consistency, repetition, improving technique, you know, trying to put a bit more weight on here and there, and progressively overloading, which I know is a big word. We'll do a whole episode on that, don't worry. Your lifts, like it's repetition. That's what gets you.
And I think as well, it's like, you know, we are both coaches, and ideally starting your strength training, you go, oh, I want this person to be my coach, and you like have a coach to guide you through it. But like, this is why we wanted to start the podcast. And I guess coming on to the second bit of what we want to talk about is like how to optimize what you're doing in the gym without having that level of support there. So a massive one that you just touched on is repetition. And it's like repetition from what we was just talking about of how many days a week you're going to get in. Repetition of that same training session. And, you know, I say it all the time, but in your life, you are going to do a variation of the same 7 to 10 exercises in the gym. And if you're doing it correctly, you're not going to do any different ones. You're not going to learn anything new. Like,
wrong. We've definitely been there, haven't we? Like jumping into a burpee, into a handstand. Like, you can make movements up these days, and they might look fancy and they might look cool. Like you'll see on Instagram, maybe like the fitness challenges that go around. And I think, although that looks cool, like, you know, if you was a beginner watching that thinking, oh, should I try that? Is that going to get me the best results? Like, the answer is no. Like, your staples are what you want to be rinse and repeating. But what I will just say is that there's so many like spin-offs and variations of your staple movements as well.
Yeah.
We will touch on as well, just so you guys listening can go and do your research on them and just know what kind of movements are our favourites. But like, there's so many spin-offs and variations. So it's not a case of like, oh no, I've got a squat for the rest of my life. Like, that's boring.
No.
There's like 4 or 5 different variations of a squat, more probably. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's just about trying to perform that movement pattern in a different way to keep it like engaging as well, and keep it obviously not so boring, because we do understand repetition can be boring, but that is where the progress is. So
for sure,
if you want to get strong, repeat your exercises.
Literally. And like going back to the Instagram thing, I just thought of something that I said a couple of months back, but the exercises that you see on Instagram that aren't people repeating their, big lifts and stuff like that. Maybe it's like a burpee into a handstand, like what you was just saying.
I see that one and I was like, I'm tempted to try, but I'm not.
I just don't think that's the bit of me.
No.
It's like that person has put that on Instagram to get more views, for people to share it and go, oh my God, look how cool this is. I want to try this, so that their account gets bigger and so that they go viral. They are not posting it out of your best interest. They are posting it to go viral and for people to go, that looks cool. They've got the body I want. I want to do a burpee handstand. And I just think Instagram is something I will always come back to in this episode, because it's personally how I started my fitness journey.
Yeah.
And like going back to what I said at the beginning, I wish that I had this to listen to. So
yeah, that was just more straight facts and like not, like
for sure.
Seeing all these weird and wacky movements and thinking, well, I don't want to do that. So does that mean, I can't be strong? Yeah, like I can be so strong. And like going back onto what we were saying about the staple movements, I feel like, if you always have a variation of a squat, a deadlift, a press of some form. So we're talking like maybe like chest press, overhead press, pull-based movement like a pull-up, a row. Like you can't go far wrong. Of course, there are other movements as well that you can throw into there. Things like unilateral moves, which essentially means single limb, so single leg, single arm. They're the things that I would be looking at. But if I was a beginner, I'm thinking, and I wasn't in a position where I could invest in a coach, because like obviously we're going to sit here and say that we are coaches, but like genuinely, if I had just invested in a coach sooner when I started my journey, like I would have been so much further, like by now, to be honest. Like I wasted years just following random workouts on Instagram, and following what other people was doing and not really setting myself any performance-based goals. And although it was great, I was in the exercise bracket. So going back to what we were saying earlier, the importance of, training and not just exercising, like that's what gets you results. So it really is important, if you can, to invest in someone who has got that knowledge and that can set you up. But if you don't have that as an option, maybe not yet, maybe in the future, that's something you'd be thinking about. They're the movements that I would be looking at adding into my routine. I'd be looking at, where can I get a squat in the week, a deadlift in, also something single leg or maybe single arm. Maybe that is something like a Bulgarian split squat. I know Ella loves those.
I love them.
A single arm press, for example, that's also ticking the press box. And maybe a bent over row, for example. So I'm just throwing some exercises out there, what you can maybe just pause, rewind, write them down. Go onto YouTube, have a look at the, demonstrations, or just go onto mine on Ella's Instagram pages, because, even though we don't always do workout videos, like if you just have a look at like our training videos, you'll see that we're just rinse and repeating.
I'm literally always squatting, always.
I know when I like a post on, I'm always either like snatching or like doing RDLs, and I think, God, like people think I'm so boring, but it just goes to show that that's what
just repetition.
Yeah, that's what's important, and that's what gets us strong, and that's what gets results, and it will you as well if you just if you just kind of roll with it and don't get bored.
I think as well, like it's all good doing the same stuff, but tracking your weights, like at least having something in your notes app that you've got, like giving the examples that Jess just said: squat, deadlift, row, press, 4 movements that you just week on week are going to get into your training, and you're going to write down how many reps you did and how much weight you lifted for those reps. Because at the end of the day, progress doesn't happen by going into the gym and lifting the same weight for a year.
No.
You might have a couple of months adjustment phase where it's like, oh, I'm going to stick at a 25 kg deadlift because I'm not sure on my form. And that is absolutely fine and actually really important to your progress in the future to make sure you get your form right.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's tracking that weight and knowing that that's what you're putting on the bar every week. And, oh, can I add a kg here and there? Maybe I can, because actually now I can see that for the past 3 weeks, I've done 25 kg and actually it feels quite easy now. So let's just push it that bit more. And I think one thing where people go wrong at the beginning of their fitness journey, especially with strength training, is kind of falling into the exercise bracket by not tracking their training.
No. And like, they might track it on their watch. Oh, how many calories are there? Oh, burnt 300 calories, brilliant. But honestly, like, we're going to make a whole podcast episode on that because I'm super passionate about that as a whole topic. But calories burnt on your fitness watch mean nothing. Especially in strength training. Like, we need actual facts. Like, what are we lifting? What was the reps like we was doing? What's the technique looking like? How much rest are we like needing? Like you say, how many kgs are on the bar, or what dumbbells are we using? Like, that they're the important stats. Calories burnt means absolutely nothing. Now sitting here and talk to you guys, it will say that I've burned, I don't know, X amount just from sitting down. So like, don't get too hung up on the wrong stats. Tracking is so important, but you want to be tracking like, what am I doing in the gym? And like you say, you could have something as simple as notepad and pen. You know, people still use loggers, or like you say, simple. Most people got iPhones now, right? Or I'm sure phones have them as well. But just like open the notes app on your phone and just put your movements down. How many reps did I do? What weight was I using? How much rest did I have? They're the 3 things most important that you want to be tracking. And then keep tracking that week on week. So when you come to your session again, you can say, how many reps did I do last week? Or I did 8 at 25 kg for my deadlift. I'm going to try 9 reps, or I'm going to try 30 kg, for example. You know, I'm going to try and just be that 1% better. But
exactly.
That is what it comes down to. It's like every session, even us now at the level that we are at, like I just aim for one rule only in every session. It's just to try and be slightly better than last week. And that might not be in every movement. That might not be in every exercise. And you know what? Like, it might not be in every session if you look at my sessions over the week. But if I've just improved in one thing out of the period of the week, then I'm winning. Like, I'm doing better than I was last week. And, you know, it also just an important reminder to like always just try and be better than you. Like, you're beating you're in comparison with no one else. Like it's comparing your progress to where you was last week. And that's what will keep you motivated as well. Because looking at what everyone else is doing is a dangerous game.
It's not going to help anything. And I think that brings us on nicely to our third point of performance goals.
Yeah.
Because
love performance goals. Yeah. Forward.
Tracking your weights is a great way to start. But if you do just need that extra incentive to keep you in the gym, having an aesthetic goal, I'm not going to lie, just isn't going to do it.
No, it's not going to.
Beauty standards are always just changing. And what you think that you want to aim for will change constantly. And you're not going to see that progress week on week like you will in the gym with adding weight or, you know, adding reps or whatever it might be. So performance goals and having something to aim for with your sessions and with your training is just going to be super important to getting you in the gym week on week and building that consistency.
I agree. And I love performance goals. Like, for me, in more recent years, like for background, I've been training in a gym now for coming up to 11 years. Like, it's been a while, but I would say it's only been the last 5 years that my mindset have changed to performance goals. And, you know, that has been like, that time frame is more been when I've, you know, used more free weights and really throw myself into strength training, learning Olympic lifting, learning new things, and, you know, really trying to elevate my training as a whole. But, you know, like for the start, for like literally the start of my fitness journey, such a long period of time, I was just focused on training to lose weight or to train that to change the way that I looked. And honestly, like, it's just not a motivating factor. It will not keep you in it for the long run, not as much as like celebrating what your body can do. And I'm massive on this because, again, when I started ticking things off and being like, oh, wow, I'm quite impressive. For example, when I first got my first pull-up, like, to actually just think about that for a second, like, you've gone from not being able to pull your own body weight up, not even with a resistance band, this was me, like, to then being able to pull my own body weight up and now being able to do that with added weight and etc. So like, for me, like, that's such a motivating factor to keep going. I'm like, well, you know, now I want to do more. Now I want
you want to maintain it as well. You want to be like
Yeah.
well, if I stop training, then I'm not going to be able to do my pull-up anymore. So
Yeah.
I need to keep going to the gym to maintain that,
Yeah. And
which
that
is like
keeps you in it, isn't it? It keeps you motivated
100%.
because it's like, oh, I'm actually quite strong. That's quite cool. I couldn't do that last week or last year, and now I can do that. And I think more women need that. And if more women just focused on that in the gym, they would stay for so much longer, because I see it all the time. People start and they stop and they start. And it's always usually because, not all the time, but majority of the time, is because they've signed up or they've started training to change the way that they look. And
Yeah.
like you said, Ella, like it takes time and you might not see progress every week. And when that doesn't happen, and when you can't see your body changing instantly, you go, oh, what's the point? I'm not bothering. I'm going to stop training. And then you end up getting nowhere. So set performance-based goals. That's what's going to keep you in it for the long run. It's going to be so much more motivating than, just dropping kgs on a scale, which don't even get me started on the scale.
Another episode coming. I feel like we say that all the time.
I know, but it's so great because when we get started and we start talking, I'm like, do you know what? That's so important. And it's now given us a list of things that we can talk about in the upcoming weeks. So best believe there's so much coming your way, guys.
I know.
So many episodes. We've just got so much to say.
So much waffling.
But yeah, performance-based goals, and don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't need to be like, oh, I want to get my first pull-up. It could just be to not be scared of the barbells, for example. Yeah.
And like having, I think, a realistic goal that you know that you're going to reach fairly soon, or maybe in a few months, is like kind of comparing it to the aesthetic goal thing. It's not having like a never-ending goal that you feel like you're never going to reach.
Yeah.
So for you right now, if your goal is a pull-up in like a year, maybe your goal for the next couple of months can be doing a pull-up just on a lighter band, and that's the goal. Yeah. And it's just breaking it down into chunk size pieces that are going to be more manageable and motivating, because you can be like, oh, well, who knows? Maybe I'll get my pull up on the green band today.
Yeah.
Before that big event of the actual pull up.
Yeah, and it feels more, like you say, realistic, because we're also aware that it's all good setting performance goals, but if you're setting the bar high, literally, but like you're setting the bar high and obviously it's going to be a while to get there, that can demotivate you. So breaking that goal down into smaller goals, or you could just invest in a coach because they'll do that part for you and you don't need to think about it. Literally, like they will do the programming and you just show up, do it, and then eventually get results. But I think as well, just I think something we haven't talked about is like, what's your opinion on weighted machines? Because of course they are a part of strength training as well. And like I personally myself don't use weighted machines. I think everything can be done with like dumbbells, barbells, and that's just my preferred way of training. But I feel like there might be some people out here, and especially if you're first starting, I think they are a good starting point. So it might just be worthwhile touching that before we wrap up.
That's a good idea. I always say, if I have a client, I'm going to get them as much as I can onto a barbell or onto free weights, because they have my support of learning that form. Yeah. So barbells, dumbbells, for anyone listening who might not know, are going to be more technically challenging than your machine weights. Yeah. Essentially, your machine weights takes away any need for stability in your body or your muscles and core strength, which is something we're all majorly lacking in. So ideally, we do want to be using the barbells and the dumbbells, just because, again, it keeps it more interesting, learning skills and just having that change up of your routine. Look, having your machine weights I think, have a place for some people. If you really are just intimidated by the barbell, you don't have anyone to help you, start on the machine weights, build up some strength there, because it literally guides you through the movement, most of it.
It's a great place to start. I would agree. It's a great place to start, especially like we say, the gym's a daunting place to be, and especially if you're just starting out, looking at all the complicated kit, if you like I understand. I felt that way as well, and it can be easier to just go onto the machine where the instructions are literally there, and like you say, it physically guides you through the movement pattern, and I think it's really great to build up that foundational strength. All I would say is that they are definitely not necessary. You can do everything that you need to do, in my opinion, with a pair of dumbbells. Of course, over time, if you needed to like progress, you'd need a range of different weights. But what I'm trying to say is like free weights are like all you really need to build that strength. And like you say, just coming down to mobility and increasing range of motion, like actually moving through the movement patterns without that, support from the weighted machines is got so many more benefits. But I'm definitely not dissing them. I think they've got the place. But I think if you are an advanced trainer as well, like really ideally, unless you just love a machine, because I don't know about anyone else, but I love the lat pull down. I think it's a great piece.
I love the lat pull down.
I do love the lat pull down. So there are some machines, and like for my clients, I might like purposely just program some certain machines. Example, was talking about the pull-up goal. A lat pull down is a really good way to build up that strength to then transfer over to a pull-up. So we're not saying like don't use them, they've got their place, but again, like ideally, like free weights are the way forward, and that's what you want to be focusing on.
100%. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
To kind of close off, have you got anything that you kind of want to say about that people just should not even think about as beginners on their strength training journey?
I think really for me, it's just coming back to that whole, like, just don't overcomplicate it. Be realistic. Like, be realistic. It's a huge one. Like, it doesn't matter how, when, like how much you're doing it, to get started. It just matters that you start. Like, it just matters that you just take the right steps to get the ball rolling, and then the rest will come with time. And again, like, I'm not saying this from, like a sales point of view. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Ella. But if you do have the opportunity to invest in some support from a personal trainer, from a coach, from someone who is qualified and can guide you and just get you up on your feet, it doesn't even have to be, for a long period of time, then that is what I would 100% recommend. Because again, just take it from someone who did spend years, and I wouldn't say that was wasted, because now, like, my journey, like, I am where I am because of that, and because of those years that I did completely wing it. And I can now sit and talk about it today because of that. I just think, again, I would have been so much further if I didn't just wing it for so long. So that's really my closing point.
Nice. Don't wing it, guys. My closing point: don't listen to people telling you that you need to do a burpee handstand pull-up. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, no, literally facts. Just focus on the basics. The basics never let you down. Repetition never lets you down. And just allow yourself time. Like, allow yourself time to build strength. It does take time. But the good thing about it, and this is a really good closing point, is like strength is something you can always build on. Like for weight loss, for example, you might hit your goal weight and that's that. With strength, like, it's something that can be constantly improved. You can always get better. You will never really, you might do, but you will never really reach your peak. Do you know what I mean? As long as you keep consistent, you can keep getting better. So if that's not a motive to start, I don't know what is.
And you've got all the tools to start now as well, so there's no excuses.
If there are any questions though, make sure that you do drop them below, or just, drop us a DM, because we would love to kind of expand and help you further if we can. And just like we've said in the other episodes, if there's anything that you want to see, make sure you let us know, because we would love to make a podcast episode around that. We want to give you what you want to listen to.
Yeah. This is for you.
We don't want to ramble. So make sure that you go follow us over on Instagram if you haven't already, and we will see you next week for episode number 4.